Hello and welcome to Demand Avoidance, a webinar by Space Hertfordshire. My name is Chris Russell. I am the Family Support Manager and the Training Lead for Space, and I will be delivering this online webinar. Now, before we start, I'd like to share a bit about the charity and what we offer. So Space is a Hertfordshire-based, award-winning charity supporting and empowering families of children and young people who are neurodivergent. Whether you think your child may be neurodivergent, if you're having those thoughts, if you're going through the diagnostic process, or if you've already received a diagnosis in your family, you are in safe hands and you are welcome at Space. Space is a needs-led charity, not diagnosis-led. At Space, we offer SEND-specific family support free of charge. We have a range of face-to-face support groups. We run events and activities for young people. We are a short break local offer provider. We also provide Lending Space, which is Hertfordshire's only free resource library. Training and workshops are available both on our website and available for commission. We provide alternative provision for children and young people who need a slightly different approach to education. We also have a closed Facebook group with a community of over 10,000 members across Hertfordshire, and we offer a variety of services. So on the screen you will see scannable QR codes to access our wider offer. You can also visit our website at spacehearts.org.uk to find out more. But if you would like to pause and scan any of our QR codes, they will take you through to those relevant departments on screen. So demand avoidance, what is it? Well, demand avoidance is the term given when a child either actively or passively refuses day-to-day demands placed upon them. There is a whole host of reasons that a child may be demand avoidant. It may be due to an underlying need, such as ODD, oppositional defiant disorder. It may be due to demand avoidant autism. It may be because a child has learnt that they value the act of defying a demand more than complying with adults and authority figures. Throughout this webinar, we will be exploring ODD, demand avoidant autism, sometimes referred to as PDA. We will also be exploring the reasons why a child may refuse demands and covering a bank of strategies to support demand avoidant children and young people. Now, everyone has a certain level of need for autonomy or control, as the only things we really have true control over are our own thoughts and our own actions. To quote the Stoics, you have control over your own thoughts and actions, but not over the thoughts and actions of others. So if we don't feel in control of our own thoughts and actions, then what do we have left? So some people are so laid back that they're practically horizontal. They have very little need for control. Whereas some people, alternatively, have a very high level of need for control. This is often caused by high levels of anxiety, as the more that someone feels that they are in control, the less anxious they may feel in the moment. Some children have a very high level of need for autonomy to be in control, and may feel like they're sacrificing their bodily autonomy by complying with everyday demands, such as putting your shoes away, hanging a coat up, or being asked to do a simple task. Complying with that demand can feel like they are sacrificing their bodily autonomy. And if they are complying, then they are no longer in control of their bodies. I'm not doing what I'm choosing to do. My body is now doing what you chose for it to do. So what level of control do I have left in that moment? The act of defying those demands can make a child feel more in control. Again, some of this will stem from a place of anxiety, or it may also come as a learned response. So we ask the question, but aren't all children defiant? Yes, many children are. Many children can display oppositional or defiant behaviours at certain points of development. But if your child has been diagnosed with a condition such as oppositional defiant disorder or a demand avoidant profile, then these symptoms of defiance will be so frequent and so severe to the point where learning and social relationships are negatively impacted. So what is oppositional defiant disorder? Well, its medical definition is a pattern of angry or irritable mood, argumentative and defiant behaviour, or vindictiveness lasting at least 6 months. It is a child who very much needs to feel in control. Now, ODD is characterised as a behavioural disorder rather than a neurodiverse condition. It's usually diagnosed in childhood and again characterised by uncooperative, defiant, negative and irritable behaviours towards parents, peers, teachers and other authority figures. And many children, particularly teenagers, can be oppositional, but the oppositionality of ODD persists despite reasonable parenting strategies. The cause of ODD is not known, and while different professional groups tend to have differing viewpoints, there is increasing recognition that oppositional defiant disorder certainly has a biological component. And some studies show that the majority of children with early diagnosed ODD have underlying neurodiverse needs, often ADHD and or autism. There are 3 clusters of behaviour that diagnose ODD. A person with ODD will present at least 4 of these symptoms over the space of at least 6 months. So that is an angry or an irritable mood, someone who often loses their temper, is often touchy or easily annoyed, angry and resentful. The second is argumentative and defiant behaviour, someone who often argues with authority figures or adults, often actively defies or refuses to comply with requests from authority figures or with rules, often deliberately annoys others or blames others for their mistakes or their behaviour. And vindictiveness, someone who has been spiteful or vindictive at least twice within the past 6 months. However, many studies suggest that only about 10% of cases are ODD alone. There is a high prevalence of associated ADHD, which has led some authors, some researchers, to consider that there should be a form of ADHD diagnosed as the oppositional form. Now, there is a large overlap between ADHD and ODD, but again, ODD is diagnosed as a behavioural disorder, not a neurotype, not a type of brain. So ODD describes behaviour, but it doesn't explain the cause. It doesn't look at the underlying why. So ADHD is neurodevelopmental, it is a neurotype. Many ADHDers will seek novelty. They're motivated by new and exciting experiences, particularly those who have combined type ADHD or hyperactive type. They may have attention regulation difficulties, so it may be difficult to sustain attention unless you're hyper-focused on something. Hyperactivity is present in some ADHDers as well, which can lead to rule breaking or oppositional or defiant behaviour, because hyperactively or impulsively some ADHDers may go and do something without thinking through the consequences. Whereas in ODD, it describes behaviour but not the cause. Those with ODD may seek revenge through that vindictive behaviour, may blame others for their mistakes, may be defiant and disregard rules. And again, ODD doesn't explain why, it just explains that it does happen. May also be aggressive. Now studies show that there is racial disparity. More people with ADHD are diagnosed in white communities, and more are diagnosed with ODD in black, brown and indigenous populations. The overlap between the two certainly exists. There's irritability, difficulty managing anger and emotions, intense meltdowns or dysregulations, tendency to get up from where they're expected to be in a classroom or work environment, difficulty following instructions, and may seem to purposefully annoy others. In ADHD, this can be due to impulsively trying to tackle boredom, whereas in ODD it's suggested that it's more targeted. And often both are sensory seekers or stimulus seekers. There is a large overlap between ODD and ADHD. And next we come on to demand avoidance and autism. Now there's many different terms that are used. In some recent diagnoses, some young people are being diagnosed with autism and then in brackets with a demand avoidant profile or demand avoidant autism. There is the term PDA that is used, which stands for pathological demand avoidance, although this is not an NHS diagnosis. PDA has recently been rebranded by some to the pervasive desire for autonomy, which I personally quite like. Pervasive is there in all areas. Desire for autonomy, control over your own thoughts and your own actions. And in some cases, it's referred to as extreme demand avoidance. So pathological demand avoidance, PDA, demand avoidant autism, whichever we choose to call it, is defined as an obsessional avoidance of the ordinary demands of everyday life. Their definition comes from Elizabeth Newson. Elizabeth Newson was the first to describe this demand avoidant autism in the 1980s. She was a consultant child psychologist who found that some of the children that she worked with had features in common with but were qualitatively different from other autistic children, which has led it in recent terms to be described as autism but. And this is because some of the more stereotyped or common support strategies that are employed to autistic children and young people often may not work with demand avoidant young people, such as having strict routines, the order of the day written down in order, a visual routine of what's going to happen, what the expectations are. They can work for many autistic children to know what the expectation is and help see the predictability in a seemingly unpredictable day or event. But many demand avoidant autistics may find the imposition of that schedule and that routine overwhelming. It's also worth noting that our understanding of autism has greatly increased since PDA was first described in the 1980s. Our understanding of autism now, 50 years later, is much better than it was. So since that time, there has been much debate and controversy about whether PDA exists as a separate entity or whether it is specific to or part of the autism spectrum. Is demand avoidance a characteristic that is there in all autistic young people to certain degrees, the same as other areas of need, maybe stronger in other young people? There's also debate over whether children with other conditions may also have a demand avoidant profile, which we've covered, looking at the links between ODD and ADHD. Now, PDA is characterised by the following, although one person may not carry all of the characteristics. Someone who obsessively resists ordinary demands, Someone who appears very sociable on the surface, but may often lack depth in understanding. Someone who has quite excessive or quite sudden mood swings. And they may be comfortable, sometimes to an extreme extent, in role play and pretend. So a child may embody being a snake or a vampire, because the everyday demands placed upon an animal or a fictional character are very different to the everyday demands placed on the actual child. So a child may be extremely comfortable in that role play. There can be obsessive behaviour focusing rather on people than just things. And many of those with demand avoidant autism are often very charming and charismatic to talk to. Now, similar to oppositional defiant disorder, those with demand avoidant autism may be more likely to resist everyday demands to feel in control. But with demand avoidant autism, there is a higher likelihood of resisting demands linked to social communication. Now, some children who are autistic, don't have their demand avoidant profile, will go through periods of defiant or avoidant behaviour. This can again be due to high anxiety levels surrounding the demand, as that can be caused by not fully understanding the task, an emotion, or a social situation. We may ask a child to just load the dishwasher, but the child may be unsure, well, where exactly do the plates go? Do the cups need to be a certain way up or in a certain order or a certain position? Does the dishwasher wash all areas equally? And if I load it wrong, am I going to look stupid? Am I going to look like a fool for getting it wrong? Am I going to be putting myself in a position of failure or ridicule by doing it wrong? So if I refuse to do it, I can't get it wrong. Some children may avoid the emotional aspect of a task. Simply asking a child to pop your shoes on, we're going to go to the shops, may result in a child defying that demand or avoiding that demand of putting their shoes on. Because when they go to the shop, they enter a state of sensory overwhelm. There's loud music, it's bright, it's busy, there's people everywhere. That child then has to pick exactly which emotion they need to describe. They need to find the right language to describe exactly what that emotion is. Turn those thoughts into speech and ensure that a parent or friend can recognise what that emotion is from their speech in order to support them. So in many instances, avoiding that demand eliminates the risk of failure or ridicule for getting it wrong. It can be to avoid a social situation. A child may refuse to do their maths work in their lesson because after maths is break time. And actually navigating the playground on my own I find very difficult, but maths I find quite easy and enjoyable. So if I refuse to do my maths in my maths work, my maths lesson, I get kept in at break time to do it then. So I avoid the demand of the social situation through fear of failure, fear of ridicule. Because not attempting a task or behaviour means you're guaranteed not to fail. Now again, there is a large crossover between demand avoidant autism and oppositional defiant disorder. Again, oppositional defiant disorder describes the behaviour without the underlying cause. In demand avoidant autism, many behaviours are due to overwhelming anxiety and anxiety around a task, a fear of failure and ridicule. And you may see children avoid everyday tasks or anything that is perceived to be a demand. because the world can feel very unpredictable. So avoiding a demand makes the world more predictable because I stay in control. Now, the crossover between the two, behaviour might be viewed as unexpected. We expect children to follow suit, they may not always. It's viewed as someone who is being difficult and defiant. It's a need to feel in control of the environment due to being emotionally dysregulated. There may be some risk-taking behaviours, often seen as stubborn or disruptive towards routines. This can also have an impact on home, school, and relationships. And it can be interpreted as some as manipulative. But it is worth remembering that demand-avoidant children are often anxious. Demand-avoidant children are emotionally dysregulated, as demand avoidance is either an anxiety response or a learned behaviour. So that poses the question, well, is it a choice? And the answer isn't quite that simple. Demand avoidance may stem from a valued behaviour, something that I've learned over time that I value. I value the autonomy of demand avoiding over the benefit of complying. I don't see the value in sacrificing my bodily autonomy, the control over my thoughts and actions. So consciously, I will choose to avoid the demand as this is the best choice I have in that moment. But it can also be a less conscious decision, an anxiety response. If I feel in control, I feel less anxious. Defying a demand from an authority figure can mean that I stay in control. It can be that gut reaction or a knee-jerk response to the initial anxiety of a demand. However, this can cause an anxiety cycle. We feel more anxious the next time presented with a demand because I didn't healthily or appropriately learn how to cope with it last time. I just avoided it. So the next time it comes, I avoid it again. And so it becomes a learned response. It becomes a routine. It may have started off as an unconscious knee-jerk reaction that has become a routine response. So how do we break that cycle? Before I go into our bank of strategies, if you are concerned about your child's anxiety levels, please do speak to a medical professional such as your GP. Now, there are plenty of things you can do at home to support your demand-avoidant young person. This includes modifying your use of language, the use of invitations, employing fixed and limited choices, using more non-verbal communication, and being less direct. So language and communication. Communicating with your young person with calm and non-threatening language can help to reduce any underlying anxieties. Now, I'm not suggesting that anyone watching this does communicate with their young person in a non-calm and threatening manner. But I will ask, how many of you have ever had your child accuse you of shouting or being annoyed with them when you yourself haven't noticed any difference in your pattern of speech, your volume, or your tone? Some children may interpret language as confrontational at the slightest change of tone of voice. And certainly if we end up shouting or escalating, then we've lost in that moment, as the situation will inevitably escalate, moving us further and further away from a cooperative solution. So we can give processing time. We can often allow this with the script of, tell me when you're ready. Tell me when you're ready can really support demand avoidant children in many ways. The first, it suggests that I'm not going to stand over you, pressuring you to make a decision or impose on your personal space until you comply through the discomfort of my imposition. Nor will I rush you through the process of managing that knee-jerk anxiety or processing whether this is a learnt response that I'm defaulting to. Secondly, you as the child feel more in control, as the script ends when you are ready. When you are ready adds an element of child-led processing time. And thirdly, it suggests, tell me when you're ready, that the plan is still the plan. What we have set out to do will still happen. I'm not going to shout or argue with you about it. The boundary is still in place, but it's up to you to tell me when you're ready. Invitations. So inviting your child to participate in a single or a choice of activities can help to reduce underlying anxieties, as it changes a demand into an invite, an invitation, allowing your child to feel more in control. And most of the time, given the choice, many children do choose to join in and not be left out. An invitation can be a formal, written invitation, a letter in an envelope. Could be something you scroll on a post-it note. Could just be a verbal invitation. The downside to this strategy is that your child might still say no, which is why it's useful to have a bank of strategies, because we can always say no to an invitation. Fixed and limited choices. So offering fixed and limited choices can often help to allow a child to feel in control whilst an adult has still set boundaries. Now, these fixed and limited choices can be verbal. Hat or coat on first? You choose. You choose. The you choose script reinforces that yes, the child is in control. Hat or coat on first? It's up to you. But an adult has taken control of the situation. I've broken down the steps of get dressed into a choice of two, and it's up to you which way we proceed. Now, this situation arises because a child is required to get dressed in weather-appropriate clothing before leaving the house. An instruction of get dressed may be too direct, and we see the demand avoidance kick in. Whereas shortening the verbal cues to hat or coat first, you choose, it ends that sentence with the reinforcement that the child does get to choose. Now, fixed and limited choices can also be non-verbal. When offering your child a drink, you may hold up a carton of milk in one hand, the orange juice in the other. You don't have to verbalise anything. You're offering a choice of two drinks, and a child may point or nod or verbalise their response. It takes more of the social communication out of it, lowering the anxiety. It can also be a combination of the both. It may be that some choices are verbalised and some are non-verbal. So would you like an apple or an orange for your snack today? I'm asking this, offering the apple or the orange, whilst holding the punnet of grapes. It's the hidden third option. Just because an option is not presented verbally doesn't mean that you're not presenting it. I can verbally offer two options and physically offer the third. However, this can work in reverse. Do be mindful of what visual cues you may be using and inadvertently offering to your child as a choice. Now, sometimes any choice may be overwhelming. There may be instances where your child is in a state of too much overwhelm to make any choice, no matter how we present it. So, knowing that your child is thirsty and placing a glass of water next to them as you walk past may be the best thing to do in that instance. because there's no verbal demand to drink, there's no eye contact, no social communication, no need for a reply. It's just a glass of water placed next to the child and we move on. Being less direct. Now, being indirect can feel counterintuitive, especially with autistic children. But sometimes diverting our communication to a much less direct form can help ease the pressure of making a choice. Where possible, you may wish to address the whole family or a group with an instruction, rather than single out the child who has not yet done their task. So well done to everyone who has their shoes on ready to go. Those of you that haven't, we must make sure they're on before we get in the car. Thank you. I haven't singled out anyone for not putting their shoes on, nor have I praised any single individual for those that have got ready on time. I'm taking the you element out of it and putting the expectation out on a whole group. Sometimes praise or instruction may be directed at an inanimate object. So, my goodness, this room looks really tidiness. Now, I'm not praising the child's tidiness. The tidiness does not belong to the child in this scenario. The tidiness belongs to the room. The child was just the facilitator, and we're skipping over this fact. We can make it playful. I haven't seen a room this tidy in years. I love it. All of the praise goes to the room, not the child. For some younger and even some older children, you can also direct an instruction through play. Do you know what your toy panda told me? He said he doesn't know how to put this puzzle together. Can you believe it? We need someone who can teach Panda how to put this together. Do you know anyone that could help him? The demand then isn't placed on the child at all to complete the puzzle, but the demand is now on the toy panda, and your child can then be the authority figure for Panda, showing them what to do and how to do it. They become the teacher or the parent looking after their toy, while indirectly finishing the puzzle. And we can end this interaction by praising the panda. What a great job the toy has done. But the praise and recognition goes on the toy to reduce the feelings of overwhelm. Now, using declarative language can also help. So consider the difference between these two statements. You haven't had a drink all day. You're going to be dehydrated. Drink that up now. And our second statement, I'm feeling quite thirsty actually. I don't think I've had much to drink since breakfast. I'm going to have a glass of water, that'll make me feel better. The first gives no autonomy. There's no opportunity for a child to learn to listen to their body. It is a dictation that I know best because I am bigger than you. The second is modelling your inner thoughts. It's a declaration of your own inner thoughts and feelings. You're not giving any direct instruction, but promoting and vocalising the steps you take to manage your own needs in the hope that your child learns this indirectly. By using declarative language, making declarations, you are commenting or making statements out loud about what we think, what we notice, our memories, our feelings, the things we wonder about, and what we observe. It's flexible and it allows for more than one possible way to respond. So we can use declarative language to give an opinion. Oh, I love this spaghetti. Make an announcement. I'm thinking of going to the cinema tomorrow. We can celebrate. I had such a good time today. I can observe. I think it looks like your brother wants a turn. You can reflect. Last time the controller stopped working, it needed new batteries, didn't it? And problem solve. That picture needs tape to fix it. Each of those examples focuses either on the self, I, or an object's needs, rather than relying on any direct instruction from us. Declarative language doesn't even require a verbal response. It's never a question, it's a statement. Rather, it invites experience sharing. It provides a framework for later conversations. There's no need for your child to get something from your words. You share memories, share experiences, thoughts, emotions, and opinions, encouraging your child to do the same as and when they are ready. To conclude, we have explored demand avoidance in the form of ODD and autism. We've had a look at where demand avoidance may come from and the potential underlying anxieties, as well as a bank of strategies to support young people, focusing on the playful and more indirect language. Your feedback is extremely valuable to us. Please scan the QR code or visit the link on screen to complete a short survey about this webinar. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Goodbye.